It's Monday night, and you know what that means. The Jersey First Television Network proudly brings to you the latest edition of Real Talk. And certainly, I am the generational talent in Garden State Media and the hero you need right now, folks, Fernando Uribe. Happy Monday to all of you. Happy first day of autumn, my favorite season of the year. Obviously, with the NFL well underway, the baseball playoffs are quickly approaching. Maybe we'll see for my Yankees, who knows? And certainly hockey and the NBA is right around the corner. Of course, college football is also underway. And it's a great time because Halloween is my favorite holiday. So again, happy fall to all of you tuning in here, folks. And again, I want to thank you all for making this a part of your Monday night viewing. And thank you for tuning in from wherever and however you may be doing so tonight on all of your social media platforms here on Jersey First TV. Folks, and if you haven't done so already, it takes 5 seconds. Trust me, I've counted. Like, comment, and share tonight's episode. That's it. It really helps get the show out to more viewers, obviously. It helps with the algorithm. As we all know, it's very tricky. And I appreciate your support here every single week. And, of course, if you have not done so already, make sure you like us on Facebook. Follow us on Instagram and X. Don't forget to subscribe to us on YouTube. Click the little bell right there. You'll be automatically notified of all the great content brought to you by Jersey First TV. And, of course, whether you get your podcast on Spotify or SoundCloud, download Jersey First, and you can take our episodes with you whenever and wherever you're going during these autumn weeks here. Again, whether you're going food shopping, walking your dog, maybe just doing some yoga outside, since it's a nice brisk right now, not too hot, not too cold, right? But whatever it is you're doing, I'm pretty sure you have your smartphone on you. Folks, again, we appreciate your support of Jersey First TV. And folks, I can't say enough, really. Here I am front and center, always representing the Jersey First Television Network, always educating and advocating for the residents here in the great state of New Jersey. Folks talking about issues that really nobody else is talking about, especially here, being the leader in independent media. You can always rely on us, folks, at Jersey First TV. And, of course, brand new episodes of Real Talk with Fernando Uribe premiere every Monday Night Live. Of course, check your local listings for start times. And we appreciate, as always, you making this a part of your Monday night viewing. Folks, a jam-packed show tonight. You want to stick around for final thoughts? I'm going to have a lot to say about a recent endorsement in the Jersey mayoral race. And quite frankly, it's almost like one insufferable progressive is trying to out-progressive the other progressive here. But I'll tell you why the recent endorsement by Hoboken Mayor Ravi Bala and current state assembly candidate as well, and his endorsement of progressive James Solomon, the current councilman in Wardy in downtown Jersey City, is a little scary. But more importantly, folks, it kind of reminds you about some of the woke nonsense that seems to be permeating in Jersey City. Of course, you can thank this guy, Stuart Thomas. I'll give you my thoughts on Stuart Thomas later on during Final Thoughts. And, of course, a little bit of a breakdown of the Jersey City mayoral campaign. Folks, also, you want to stick around for a special comment. I have a lot to talk about when it comes to last night's gubernatorial debate. Folks, journalism never sleeps here. It's, kind of hitting the late hours last night, driving up from Lawrenceville, and, of course, hosting tonight. So, hey, folks, your favorite broadcast journalist is always busy and trying to bring you great content every single week here. Special comment about really the media scrum and how important it is for media to be involved during these gubernatorial debates and getting questions answered. So we'll talk a little bit about that. And also, folks, during a special comment, I'll discuss, obviously, the significance last night of the great memorial service for Charlie Kirk out in Arizona. And I'll talk about why, it's still important to keep fighting for Charlie Kirk, despite this rise in divisiveness and polarization that we're living in. It's important to remember why Charlie Kirk was so important and why he was so special. And certainly, as a reminder, some of the videos I spoke at, we'll talk about that later on during a special comment as well. Folks, again, it's election season. Do me a favor, like, comment, and share tonight's episode here. It really helps get the show out to more people, and we appreciate your support here on the Jersey First Television Network. And folks, listen, I want to, just give a special thanks again to David Wildstein and the New Jersey Global, along with On New Jersey and Laura Jones, along with Rider University and Micah Rasmussen, the director at the Rebovich Institute of American Politics down there at Rider University, for the invitation to last night's gubernatorial debate. Only one of two debates during this election cycle. I think we should have more, folks, but hey, I don't have a seat on the elect commission. Maybe in the future, who knows? That'd be nice. But in any event, folks, it was great to be there in attendance last night, and it was great to run into some really, really good journalists last night. And guess what? One of my favorite ones joins me right now live. He is the politics reporter for NJ Advanced Media and a fellow baseball fanatic. We'll see if we have a lot to look forward to coming up in October next week. And he's my good friend, folks. Brent Johnson joins us live right now on Real Talk. Brent, welcome back and good to see you, man.
Great to be here. Thank you for having me, Fernando.
Appreciate it. And bro, I seen you last night. I mean, you're looking slim these days. So whatever you're doing, man, keep it up. You know what I'm saying?
Hey, it's 2 kids keeping me busy. I'm trying, and I'm also, always good to lose weight so I can play with them as I get older, and I stick around. So
yeah, man, listen.
42 now, so it's I'm on the other end of 40. So
listen, you're looking slim, brother. Looking good, man. But good to see you, man. Again, it was good to see you last night. A great debate. Let's sort of break this down here. Listen, and I think because you're an old school wrestling fan, I think you'll appreciate this little characterization. You know, that building was packed with energy. Over 1,500 people, I think, was announced, was the attendance. Kind of reminding me of, an old, auditorium in South Philadelphia back in the late 90s, early 2000s, the old ECW arena there for Extreme Championship Wrestling. A lot of energy in the building, a lot of supporters for Jack Chiarelli, for Rebecca Sherrill. I got to tell you, Brent, the energy was really, really, I think it was buzzing yesterday in Lawrenceville.
Yeah, it did. It also had the feel it was in a basketball arena. So, and it kind of had, yeah, you're right. I've seen my share of independent wrestling at Armories in the tri-state area.
Yeah.
So yeah, it did. And it was a tense, combative debate. It was not it was not collegial, for lack of a better term. Like, they went at each other. Both of them did. Yeah. So it did have that feel.
Yeah, absolutely. And we'll get down to some of the questions here. And great questions once again, folks, by the panel there, obviously by Micah Rasmussen, by David Wildstein, certainly, as well as everyone in attendance. We had students, alumni, residents in attendance there. Great questions. We had a great elderly person in the audience, I think 96 years old. I mean, she was feisty and fiery and really loved her question. We'll get to her in a moment. But what's interesting, Brendan, you're a sports fan. I think you'll appreciate this. I didn't see any knockout blows by either Chiarelli or Sherrill, but I think if we're going to be, again, calling balls and strikes objectively here, I think that Jack won enough rounds on points. Again, going to the body, some nice jabs, some good policy points. I think that Jack Chiarelli came out with. In fairness to, I think Representative Sherrill was also quick on her feet as well. But I think in a debate where she had to overperform, I think there's been this buzz going around about Representative Sherrill being very underwhelming in media interviews lately, not doing a lot of media to begin with, but very underwhelming. I think a lot of Dem operatives said to me, Fernando, she's got to come out swinging tonight and overperform. I didn't see that from her. And I think based on that, I think Jack Chiarelli won this by winning enough rounds and winning on points. Is that fair to say?
It's funny now when you debates are so much about who won and who lost, and the temperature I took from the insiders and operatives that I spoke to today were, yes, Jack came off like he's done. He's done this 3 times now. He came off as well prepared and gubernatorial, but she also exceeded expectations because some people thought that she had to simply do well to come out looking good, and a lot of Democrats felt that she did that she got in a few blows on Chiarelli, but yeah, that was kind of the consensus, was that no one won here. It also was kind of like they were both playing to the base, and maybe it's a base election, it's an off-year election. You want to make sure you get turnout, so that's not really surprising. But yeah, it was kind of like if you went in thinking you were going to vote for Chiarelli, you're still going to, and vice versa with Sherrill, that you may not have gotten many new voters, but at least drew battle lines and brought the issues out into play, because maybe this is the first time some people started paying attention and don't really know anything about who has tax plans and who's, this and who's that. So maybe it kind of defined the contours of the race a little bit more for people who are just starting to pay attention.
I think you're right. I mean, listen, a lot of New Jersey residents are very invested in their summer, whether it's going down the shore, vacations, whatever the case may be. It's always like after Labor Day, people start paying attention. And I think that it shows by the traffic. I mean, if you look at if you look at the New Jersey Globe YouTube page, as well as the other social media platforms, there was a lot of engagement last night. There was a lot of views. People were commenting. I think people were glued to their Twitter page. People were glued to YouTube, as well as Facebook and everything else. And what I noticed, at least, driving up again, I live in Hudson County, and my drive was like an hour or 10 minutes. even, kind of having a heavy foot on the gas pedal, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Regardless, I was getting bombarded with phone calls from a lot of operatives, Brent, a lot of Democrat Party operatives saying to me, "Hey, Fern, I want to take your temperature. What you think?" And my answer was like, "No. What do you think? Because you're calling me. I think you want me to talk you down a little bit." And I can tell you, consistently, a lot of Dem operatives were concerned last night. I think, yes, I to your point, it's not about really, who won or lost. I think whoever went into last night thinking I'm going to vote for Jack is going to vote for Jack. Whoever's going to vote for Cheryl is going to vote for Cheryl. The undecideds maybe are still kind of doing their research, but a lot of them establishment people, Brent, were saying to me, "Man, she had to come out swinging. I don't think she knocked him out. She did, she was good on her feet. I think she was feisty. I think, she kind of invoked Trump too much. I think invoking the president, I think was a little over, I think tiresome. I mentioned that in my question to her during the scrum, and a lot of people were just saying to me, it's not to the degree that Kamala Harris did last year with the word salad. I mean, it was ridiculous. But I think a lot of people are saying to me, Brent, privately, like, she's not really answering questions. And yeah, she's kind of just going out there and bloviating. And that's not going to win over independents, where, again, polling, I've learned not to trust polls. But it seems like a lot of independents I talk to are kind of gravitating towards Jack. And they didn't seem very confident in her. And again, for Democrat establishment people to look like that. I mean, again, I was directly across from Craig Coughlin, State Chairman Leroy Jones, Steve Fulop, and others. They looked as stoic as, again, not to rub it in your face, they looked as stoic as Met fans right now in late September, brother. And
yeah, one thing I keep hearing from the narrative on both sides, that I keep hearing, it's a race. This is that one poll that showed it was going to be 20 points, it was very early, and that it's single digits. Even in the recent public opinion polling, independent polling shows a 6 to 8 point race. And I'm told that, that feels about right now, and it's likely going to get closer. And internal polls show different things too. Jack just had an internal poll that showed him up. So this is, both sides say this is not anything anyone should take for granted, that this is going to go down to the wire. And it's a different feeling from 2021, when Murphy and the Democrats really felt they had a good lead. Not that they were taking anything for granted either, but they really felt good about it. And you saw Jack get within 3 points. That was a real surprise to a lot of the political class in the state. And, I'm getting the same feeling about this. You're starting to hear Democrats feel more comfortable that Cheryl is talking more about local issues, but Republicans feel that they really have the high ground on that, and that Jack is more does a better job talking about local issues than she does. But then you hear on the Democratic side, the X factor here is not only numbers, the fact that there are 800 more registered Democrats, but that, Donald Trump is the X factor. What do people think about him? Last year, he did much better in this state than he did in years before. And the polling has been, it's hard to get a gauge on exactly what voters think of him, but he's not in positive territory. But really what it's going to come down to is turnout and independent voters. This is a state where it is possible to win as a Republican, meaning we've had Republican governors, Chris Christie, Christie Whitman, Tom Kaine, in the last 40 years. But you have to win over independents. You have to keep all the Republicans, win over independents, and maybe get some soft Democrats. And that's what Jack is trying to do. The final weeks will determine whether that happens.
You're absolutely right on that. And folks, if you're just joining us live right now, it is 7:15 on the East Coast. My guest tonight is the politics reporter for NJ Advance Media, the great Brent Johnson, joins us live here on Real Talk. Folks, again, like, comment, and share tonight's episode. Goes a long way in helping get the show out to more people here on Jersey First TV. Brent, it's interesting, 4 years ago, over 500,000 registered Republicans stayed home. It just seemed like it was a very polarizing primary going into this past June. It seems, for example, that NJ 101.5 FM radio host Bill Spadia still seems to be singing some sour grapes, has not endorsed Chiarelli. I think a lot of Spadia supporters have come around and said, listen, we literally and figuratively, we can't afford another 4 years of a Democrat in the governor's office with these progressive policies. And I think that's won over a lot of Spadia supporters. But it's interesting, one of the more vocal Republicans and conservatives in New Jersey, like Bill Spadia, has yet to come around with 43 days to go. What are you hearing about, quite honestly, how salty it makes them look? And it's almost like, come on, man. Like, I get it. You lost. Listen, we all lose elections, whether it's for high school, student council, or whatever else. But at some point, if you care about your state, you would think that Bill would come around, and it doesn't seem like he's going to do that. Do you think that's going to have any effect on Republican turnout or even independents that maybe looked at Bill as, maybe an alternative to Republican establishment?
I do know that it is hanging in the background of a lot of Republican minds the question of will this have an effect on the race? He does have a swath of the state as listener. I know people who listen every morning to Bill Spadea and can have a big sway there. I know the two do not get along. Obviously, I'm not telling Republicans anything they don't know. It goes back a long time. And they had a very bitter primary that Jack won handily. I know the Republicans think they can win without the support because they believe that even if you are sour about Spadea losing, who else are you going to vote for? I mean, the question is, you could stay home. That's one thing that Democrats could have their voters stay home too. You hear that about a concern on the Democratic side. Will voters stay home like they did for Kamala Harris last year? So Spadea is a wild card in this, maybe not a huge wild card. And I think the calculus that the Chittarelli team took was it is more important to get Trump's endorsement to rile up the base, get them interested, than it is to have to worry about Spadea. But again, things we will have to pay attention to as we get closer to Election Day.
During some of the questions last night, Brent would start out, obviously, I think front and center, property taxes. Both candidates were asked what's their formula when it comes to reducing property taxes. Again, we have the highest property taxes in the country on average, a little over $10,000, as reported by NJ Advanced Media, I think early this year.
Yeah,
certainly, the highest in the nation. And, I think Jack had a couple good one-liners, obviously talking about, taking money out of my right pocket, putting it in my left, and calling it by some fancy name. Obviously, a dig at the anchor program that we have here in New Jersey. I know Representative Cheryl was talking about property taxes as well. What did you take out of their answers, and quite frankly, how convincing they were?
Yeah, property taxes and affordability was a major thing beyond Donald Trump and immigration and national issues. You saw affordability is a big deal. It starts. This state is there's a very high cost of living here, as you mentioned. Property taxes. The average property tax bill in New Jersey topped 10,000 for the first time in state history this year, and so affordability is something we've heard a lot about, even especially after the 2021 race. Democrats felt that they didn't pay enough attention to it, and was part of the reason Chittarelli was almost able to pull off an upset. So you saw them introduce something like Anchor. You saw them introduce Stay NJ. There have been critics on both sides of those programs, not as much Anchor, more so Stay NJ. But and they, I think both candidates realize if you don't address affordability, that you're running the risk of losing the race. And Cheryl's tact and Democrats' tact in recent weeks has been to try to tie Chittarelli to him saying that all options have to be on the table with when it comes to taxes. And that was comments he made at an event in Bergen County, where he said he was talking about how Tennessee doesn't have a income tax, but does have a 10% sales tax, which is about 3.5 points higher than New Jersey's. And he said, all options have to be on the table. Although he didn't explicitly endorse that or say he was pushing it, some Democrats said that, well, that's basically an endorsement of it. And, Chittarelli called Cheryl a liar. And that came up again in this debate. They tried to tie him to it. And Chittarelli came out and said, no, I am not going to raise the sales tax. That is off. That part is off the table. I was speaking in generalities. And then they asked Cheryl, well, do you commit to not raising the sales tax? And she basically said, well, I'm not going to commit to anything right now, which was something Republicans might turn around on her. It's funny. Democrats have been the ones in budget negotiations privately in recent years. They floated the idea of increasing the sales tax, not to 10%, more to 7%, which is what it used to be. And so it's something Democrats have brought up privately, although you've had people like Craig Coughlin, the state assembly speaker, push back against that, and other Democrats who say, no, we have to focus on affordability. And because the sales tax is something that everybody sees. If you walk into a store and you pay for something that's not food and clothing, you're seeing the sales tax. So there is some food, but clothing's not taxed to the sales tax. But either way, it's something that you can physically see when you get on the bill. So everybody sees it. It's not a tax that affects just some people. It's a broad-based tax. So I think that's why you saw that talked about so much. And now the question is, will Cheryl now get tied by Republicans to saying, well, I haven't ruled out increasing the sales tax. So kind of like, watch out for bite the hand that feeds you.
Yeah, listen, certainly it could prove to be material for a new ad.
Yeah.
Obviously, we haven't seen what the polling will tell us after last night's debate. I'm sure a new poll will come out at some point this week, whether it's an internal one by either camp or one of the other polling apparatuses that will provide that data for sure. Folks, again, it's 7:21 here on the East Coast. If you haven't done so already, like, comment, and share tonight's episode as politics reporter from NJ Advanced Media, Brent Johnson, joins us live here on Real Talk. Brent, interesting other questions I think that came up during the evening, which really, really got my attention. And I think, if you watch this show, you know how emphatic I am about rescinding sanctuary statehood. I know Jack has talked about right from the onset of the campaign that would be his first executive order at 12:01 p.m. Should he win and take office in January of 2026. Obviously, the Immigrant Trust Directive came up last night. We all know that, and I was waiting for Jack to kind of hit Representative Cheryl. I'm voting no on the Laken Riley Act, which, again, to me, maybe I'm too partisan on this, but it's a no-brainer. I mean, someone like Representative Gottheimer saw, the validity of voting yes, and he did so. For some reason, Cheryl chose not to. That's fine. I was surprised Jack didn't hit her with that sort of body punch, as they say, during the fight. But obviously, I think Jack has been very clear about sanctuary statehood, about rescinding it. Certainly, the Immigrant Trust Directive, I think, continues to be a very big talking point for both camps. I think even some assembly races as well, when we're talking about communities that, again, progressives and the far left in New Jersey really, really want to coddle and protect. And on the flip side, Republicans and conservatives don't. What did you hear? What did you think about their answers? And I think also Cheryl kind of came across non-committal on that one as well.
Yeah, there was one of the major moments in the debate. My former colleague Sophie Nieto Munoz asked about where do you stand on the Immigrant Trust Directive and would you keep it in place? And Jack, of course, said no, I would not. It's the first thing I would get rid of. It doesn't really help protect the state. And Cheryl, it's been hard to pin her down exactly on where she stands. Obviously, it's a Murphy administration policy. The former Attorney General Gerber Graywell put it in place. Basically, long story short, to people who don't know what it is, it limits how much local law enforcement can work with ICE to detain immigrants. And, immigration is a tough topic on both sides. Polling shows that it is a divisive topic for both parties. So Cheryl did not say whether she supports or would keep this in place. She basically said, I'm going to focus on due process and make sure we're following the law and the U.S. Constitution. She was pressed again, would you support this? And she said, no, I'm going to stick to that answer. And so it's similar to what she did during the primary. She had more praise for the directive, but she also said she wouldn't write it into law, which is what some progressives and some Democrats want to do, because that'll draw attention to it and it'll likely get shot down in court. So she has had some praise for it, but again, her not answering, the idea is that it's better to have no answer than it is to have a bad answer. So maybe that's what was going on there.
I thought another interesting question that came up, obviously, about transparency. For the first time, I think, during this race, Jack pretty much kind of took a big haymaker and talked about her net worth. Obviously, since entering the House of Representatives, we know that she's come under some scrutiny. If you watch the Hot 97 episode with Charlemagne the God and the Breakfast Club, obviously she was questioned about her net worth. Obviously that little soundbite and ad has been running. Like, whoa, how do you not know you made $7 million? I mean, I don't know about you, Brent. I mean, I think if I made $7 million somewhere, I check my balance on my phone, I think I probably noticed that. But having said that, in all seriousness, though, surprised to see Jack take a stab at her. Certainly, in response, I think Representative Cheryl was going after Jack and mentioning, tax increases that he voted for. Now, again, in fairness, Democrats have run the legislature for over 25 years. So Republicans haven't had any majorities in either chamber. So if you're voting for a tax increase, I mean, you might have to look into exactly what type of increase it was, when whether he voted for it or not, he was going to get overruled by a Democrat majority. So I don't know if those punches landed by either of them. How'd you see that?
It's a tough thing it's a good attack line to say you've raised taxes your entire career. It's a tough thing to show in real time, to check your work. But I guess that's not really the point in politics. But I asked Jack about that last night, and he said it's bullshit. Sorry for any kids who are listening. But he said, I've worked my whole career to lower taxes. But Cheryl's team is really pushing the tax thing on it, because again, affordability is going to be a big deal. It's a topic that affects everybody. And so you're going to see taxes continue to be a major theme in the final 6 weeks of this election. And you saw it last night, and you're going to see it again. The question is, which side do voters, especially independent leaning voters, think is going to do a better job? Jack is saying that you've had 8 years of Democratic rule and longer than that in the state legislature. Are you better off? Don't you want change? And basically, Cheryl is pinning a lot of it on Trump, saying that Jack is backing supports the big beautiful bill and has not criticized tariffs. So it's a matter of whether nationalizing the race is going to, you know, inspire voters who may have an issue with President Trump and may not like the national economy. But it's long been the thought that all politics is local, and that especially governor's races is fought on a local level. Since 2016 and the rise of the new political world we live in, a lot of politics has been national. The question is that going to carry her over the finish line?
You're absolutely right about that. And I think, listen, during the primary, when she was sitting there with other, Democrats, some progressives, some moderates, whatever, obviously, listen, invoking the name of the president of the United States, I think obviously would energize that base. And I talked to people, on the morning of June 11th, I'm like, all right, the primary is over. Let's see as we go into November. Well, here are the facts. I mean, interest rates went down again. So if you're looking to buy a home, obviously interest rates for mortgages have gone down slightly. So interest rates have gone down. Food prices have gone down, man. As someone that is a foodie, I'm very conscious about food shopping. I mean, I look at that all the time. If we remember at the start of the year, whether it was egg prices or everything else, I mean, that's gone down. The cost of gas has gone down. Now, again, here in New Jersey, because of the gas tax, with us having the fourth highest in the country, again, just behind California, New York, and Pennsylvania, that made traveling a little more expensive this summer, even though gas was under $3 for a lot of parts of New Jersey. The tolls did take effect, obviously, those increases in the Parkway and the Turnpike. Yes, listen, New Jersey is still very unaffordable for a lot of people. But there are a lot of things that Democrats going up to the primary were trying to crucify the president on. And it's, it's a big pickle for Cheryl to be in, I would argue, just because it's like you can't throw Murphy under the bus. And you can't throw the establishment Dems under the bus either with a budget that's just gotten so inflated. Again, I just mentioned the gas tax again went up this year in its final phase. And in fairness, it started under Chris Christie. But at the end of the day, though, it's almost like, you can't keep invoking the president when there are certain economic barometers that, it's, the cost of, again, petroleum. We're drilling more. So here in New Jersey, it's like your property taxes are high, Brent. It's not the president's fault. I mean, it's Democrats in Trenton. And I think she's in a real pickle because she can't throw her party under the bus. But by the same token, it's like you have to come up with some new material here about affordability too, right?
Yeah, the economy is a tough thing. I'm not an economist.
No, neither am I.
I know the general top lines, but the point, it's a kind of a feel thing, and it shouldn't be. The economy is kind of the thing where it's the general see how you're feeling and who you blame. And everybody's angry about everything, but there's nuance there that doesn't often get discussed in campaigns because it goes over a lot of our heads, and you can't waste time on nuance and in broad stroke type things. So it comes down to, again, who are the voters going to blame? And I think that's part of the reason why you're seeing this race being considered a toss-up, because arguments are flying both ends, and it's not a very clear picture over how it's going to work out. Everyone just knows they're pissed off their taxes are high. They're pissed off at this and that when it comes to the economy and when it comes to what's going on in the state. And they're mad as hell. And who are they going to blame it for? That is the $1 million question heading into, well, now mail-in voting has already started, and early voting is a few weeks away, and then November 4th is election. It's amazing. We only have 6 more weeks left of this. I feel like we've been running this race for 2 years because Steve Fulop, he was the first to get in, and that was like 2 years ago.
Yeah,
so it really has been going on for 2 years now.
Yeah, it doesn't even feel like it's 43 days to go, but here we are for sure. And it's interesting because, last year on a national level, the reason that New Jersey was so close, I think Republicans came around, whether it was, content creators like Scott Pressler and others that were sort of big Republican surrogates, emphasizing the importance of early voting and mail-in ballots. And you saw, obviously, that turnout, which got Donald Trump within 4 points of, New Jersey's 14 electoral votes, which, again, for history fans like you and I, the last time New Jersey went red was in 1988 under George H.W. Bush. So, Republicans have to be energized with the same sort of mobilization they had last year. I think that, to your point, that's going to ultimately make or break Chitterelli's race here. And I think also, too, there's that lack of enthusiasm that I'm hearing again from a lot of operatives. Listen, case in point, there's a lot of municipalities in northern Jersey and Hudson and Bergen counties, respectively, that normally the GOTV efforts are out and about for Cheryl, and they're just not. Yeah, they help her get across the finish line, but now from June 11th to up until November 4th, it's been very mundane. It's lacking that sizzle. While I think Jack is trying to tell you, like, hey, I got the stake right now. To your point, I think turnout's obviously going to be the make or break here. But do you see any maybe polarizing ads by either camp? Again, I think last night you didn't see a lot of red meat when it came to that. Maybe the Cheryl non-committal on taxes, maybe the non-committal about her income, maybe Jack when it came to whether or not he's about desegregating schools. Not sure if you got a lot of red meat last night for any potential new ads, but what are you hearing about potentially what both camps are looking at after last night?
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of the joke now, is that debates don't really, draw any voters or change voters' minds like they did maybe 40, 30, 50 years ago. But it's now like it's rife for campaign ads and clips and attacks on social media. You're probably going to see Republicans go after Cheryl on being non-committal on the sales tax, not raising the sales tax. You may see them go after her, saying, it looks like she might keep the Immigrant Trust Directive on the books. You'll probably see something from him comments praising the president. Maybe something about school segregation, which seems Democrats are really worked up about his answer. So yeah, you'll see things like that. And you mentioned the enthusiasm. And that is something I have heard, that there might be an enthusiasm gap. It's something I definitely heard in 2021. My late best friend and colleague, Matt Arco, and I were both covered the 2021 election. And on the final week of the election, they sent Matt out to a Matt out to a Chitterelli event and me out to a Murphy event. And I remember that it was fine. It was, it was a Murphy event. Murphy had his supporters and obviously won the election. But it wasn't like a big rally type thing. It was a nice little event where a bunch of Democrats spoke and had some nice things to say. And Matt came back from this very well-attended Chitterelli event and told me, there's some real enthusiasm on the side. I think this race might be closer than it actually is. And to Matt's credit, that was correct. And I'm hearing similar things now, that the enthusiasm gap is on Jack's side. And you can see the last Quinnipiac poll that came out last week showed that very enthusiastic voters trend towards him compared to her, that he has more very enthusiastic voters. And the idea is that if this is a base election, you want to rile up your base. You want to make sure the voters get out there. And that's why you see Jack, probably why he tacked towards the president and is speaking to Republican voters. He can't afford to lose those. He has to make sure they come out, in addition to getting independent leaning voters. And why you're seeing there are questions of, is Cheryl faltering among black and brown voters? There's a fear, Kamala Harris had a drop in voter turnout last year. The fear is hopefully that, Democrats saying hopefully that doesn't happen again to them. But enthusiasm is a big question, and that could be the determining factor here in the final days of the race.
Absolutely. We'll get back to the gubernatorial race in a moment, but I really want to pick your brain here because obviously all 80 state assembly seats are up for grabs in 43 days. Listen, where I live in Hudson County is as blue as Windex, okay? It's as blue as the Met home jerseys, okay? So there's really no risk of Republicans even making any traction there. But, there's some races in southern Bergen County, some races down the shore and in South Jersey where I would argue some Dems are vulnerable. Now, again, listen, I think it's not realistic to expect the Republicans to flip the assembly. It'd be nice, in my opinion. But again, I think that Republicans have a chance, maybe 7 to 8 seats. And right now, for everyone, keeping score at home, it's a 52-28 majority for the Democrats in the assembly. You start shaving in 8, 9 seats, go from 28 to 36, 37, maybe 38, you kind of neutralize the Democrats in the assembly. Again, the state Senate is not on the ballot until 2027. I would argue that, listen, I think it's very important for these candidates to piggyback off of Jack. I think Jack maybe has some coattails here. But what assembly districts do you see where Democrats are the most vulnerable?
Yeah, you mentioned Bergen County. There's a lot of thought that Bergen is rife to pick up some seats. The same thing down in South Jersey, maybe the fifth district. There's some districts down there. It's funny. The legislature has been fascinating the last few years. In 2021, when Cettarelli came within 3 points of unseating Murphy, the Republicans picked up half a dozen seats, and that was is another sign of how much coattails happened there, and there was Republican enthusiasm. Then 2 years later, Democrats won back most of those seats, and it went back. And the question is there going to be another seesaw effect this year? It's unlikely the assembly will switch Democratic, and even if or switch Republican, even if it does, you will then have a split legislature, and you will have Democratic Senate and a Republican assembly, which I don't think will happen. But either way, that's going to be interesting. If Cettarelli wins, if Sherrill wins, it's the same setup that Murphy's had. But if Cettarelli wins, that will give him the same situation that Chris Christie had when he came into office in 2010. And the question is, does he cut some sort of deal a la Christie did with the Norcross contingent and with the Joe D contingent up in Essex County? Is there some sort of deal to be made so it's not just locked legislation where the governor wants something and doesn't get it because the legislature is against it? So that's going to be something to pay attention to if Cettarelli does win. And if he doesn't win, if Sherrill wins, it's the same setup Murphy had. The question is that just do Democrats continue to? The old joke is that Republicans fall in line and Democrats eat their own and fight amongst themselves. So it was not an easy thing when Murphy came in 2017. He fought with Steve Sweeney and Craig Coughlin over things. So maybe there's a situation like that there. Again, I keep telling this to people. This is the most fascinating election cycle New Jersey's had in forever. Right. Even more so than I think the last two gubernatorial elections. It is so much could change. So much is at stake. So many things, different factors could push the outcome that way or that way. So much to keep track of and look out for.
Absolutely. And Brent, I mean, I'm sure you've attended more events than I have, but I remember going to a few Sherrill events up here in North Jersey. And a lot of the operatives that I'd run into, like, hey, Fernando, what's going on, man? How do you see this race? And I'm always very transparent. I'm like, listen, I think realistically, Jack can win by 2 or 3 points. It's going to be a close margin. It's not going to be, by a touchdown or more. It's not going to be overwhelming. I think it's going to be a very, very close margin coming up on November the 4th. And, a lot of the, the typical vote blue, no matter who crowd were like, well, come on, Fern, give me something. What do you think? Blah, blah. And I'm always consistent. I say, I always laugh when I go to these events, Brent. And I know obviously you don't show your colors like I do. I mean, I'm a conservative. I don't apologize for that. But they ask me, Fernando, what do you think? And, if Jack wins, oh my God, this, and I say, what exactly are you panicking about? And the reason I say not to pick a fight, but I say, listen, the Democrats still control the state Senate. Okay. If Jack becomes the governor, ultimately, I would argue the most powerful person in New Jersey is going to be Senate President Nick Scutari.
Yeah,
right?
That's
and then I say, listen, I don't know if they can flip the assembly. It'd be nice, but I don't think it's going to happen. At the end of the day, you're operating under the current budget that was signed in June. Certainly, should Jack take office? Yes, maybe there's a few executive orders he'll sign, which I would like to see. Rescinding registry statehood, rescinding 5756, things of that nature. But again, because they're executive orders, Brandon, you're a smarter guy than I am at this stuff. It would seem that that'll get tied down in court maybe for some time.
Oh, yeah.
But at the end of the day, you're operating on the budget that's signed. As soon as you take office in January, you're going to have to start talking about the new budget coming up for June. So I always tell people, what the F are you freaking out about? Like, again, the Democrats are going to control the legislature, and ultimately Nick Scutari is going to have a say about what bills come to the floor. Assembly Speaker Coughlin is going to have considerable say as well. And, Jack is going to have to work with these guys and compromise, vice versa. Yep. So what exactly are you worried about? Like, this nonsense about, oh my God, reproductive rights, it's codified into state law. Oh my God, ICE, and oh my good, like, folks, like, again, it's like, it seems like Democrats, the vote blue, no matter who crowd, Brent, are so into gaslighting everybody and say, oh my God, a Republican governor, it's the end of New Jersey as we know it. It's bullshit. And I call them out. And when I say all this stuff, they look at me like, oh, Damn. Well, yeah, you're right. All right. Shit. I didn't think about that.
But
It's
it
just,
is notable that you mentioned Scutari and then Coughlin if they keep control of the assembly too,
yeah.
because that's where it comes down to. That's where Christie had his biggest fights was especially the fantastical 2017 state government shutdown, which I covered and barely slept during and had to deal with all kinds of crazy stuff from Chris Christie's photo on the beach to sleeping under my desk at 3 a.m. for half an hour until they started voting again. So, you could see things like that. You could definitely see loggerheads between the Democratic lawmakers and a Governor Cettarelli. You could also see that with Cheryl. As I said, you know, Democrats tend to there's a lot of infighting among Democrats, much more so now compared to Republicans. Republicans tend to fall in line, especially when they're in a state where they know it's harder to get power here. Um, so yeah, I don't foresee even if Cheryl wins, I don't foresee like all of a sudden abortion being written into the state constitution because you're going to have a lot of conservative leaning Democrats in the state legislature who wouldn't vote for something like that to put it on the ballot. Um, I don't know what kind of sea change you're going to have. Probably the biggest sea change you would see is if Jack wins is control over the budget. He has the governor has a lot of say over the state budget and can take his red pen and line item veto a lot of stuff out and cut Democrats off, where they stand. Um, Even Cheryl could do the same. Murphy and Democrats had budget fights for almost every year that he's been here. So you're going to see that's where a lot of the battle lines are going to be drawn is during budget season and who gets funding for what. Um, so that's something to look out for.
And again, since 2017, obviously when obviously Chris Christie's last budget was $29 billion. Obviously, it's doubled since then, right? Is it a little over 58 or 59, right? Is that where?
Yeah, the spending. The Murphy administration will argue that the spending has increased so much because they've gotten pension obligations. They started paying full pension and changed the school formula, and a lot of this stuff is necessary. That's an argument that's beyond my beyond my nonpartisanship. But yes, it's indisputable that the budget has gotten bigger and we have spent more money as a state over the last 8 years, significantly so. The question now is, if Cettarelli's elected, can he rein that in, and how much cutting will he physically be able to do without major drawbacks? And the same thing for Cheryl. I mean, I don't think if Cheryl does win and it's by a close margin, she can't come in and just say, we're just going to continue to spend as much as we want. There's going to have to be some sort of reckoning no matter who wins. And I heard this is not going to be an easy budget cycle. The next year, there's going to be a lot of money troubles, a lot of fiscal issues in the state. So that is definitely going to be a showdown type thing.
Another interesting question during the evening. I forgot if it was an alumni or a resident, but talking about um, affordable housing development, and that's been a big issue, I think, for both camps, right? I mean, when it comes to overdevelopment. Listen, where I live in Hudson County, I walk a couple of blocks. Brent, I look in New York City every day. I look at the sky. I'm blessed up here, but you go down by the waterfront. I mean, I don't even recognize anymore. I mean, any square footage that developers have seen along the waterfront in towns like Edgewater, Weehawk, and Western York, if you're familiar with the towns I'm mentioning.
Yeah.
I mean, they've just been gobbled up. But we're seeing these ridiculous, high rental buildings going for $2,500, maybe sometimes $3,000 a month in rent. I'm just like, my God, buy something paying rent like that. But the point is that it's not just exclusive to Hudson County, Southern Bergen County, Middlesex, parts of Northern Bergen, Passaic. It seems like everywhere in New Jersey, there's a concern about overdevelopment. And I think I remember both Cheryl and Cettarelli were talking about, hey, listen, we have to look at infrastructure too. We just can't build for the sake of it without accounting for important aspects like infrastructure. And I thought it was very interesting. I think they seemed to kind of be both on the same page where they were concerned about overdevelopment, even though at the end of the day, it depends who you ask, which campaign is taking money from developers. But at the end of the day, I think both candidates showed some concern about overdevelopment and affordable housing, but I don't think they offered any real answers. At least that's what I saw.
Affordable housing is one of the most complex, unusual, maddening topics that I've ever had to cover in my career. Early on, I've now been at the Star Ledger, NJ.com, State House Bureau, Politics Bureau since 2013. So it's now been 12 years. And that was one of the first things I covered was COA, which is the Council on Affordable Housing, and trying to explain that very complex issue in a few paragraphs to people who don't really have the patience for it, or it just goes over their head, is a really difficult thing. It's so many nuance. Both sides, I mean, you will have one side will say that there's too much overdevelopment and that the mandates are way too um, uh, difficult to deal with. And the other side will tell you, well, we still need affordable housing in the state. We have a need for more units. So something has to give here. And it's like this topic that has been impossible to solve. And yeah, I don't know if there's a magic bullet I hear either candidate talking about. They both say that it's an important issue from either side, from different angles, and that they need to do something to address it. But I don't know what possibly could be the thing. I feel this is a very important issue that not a lot of people know about and not a lot of people have answers for.
I was surprised because I know it's come up a lot during the cycle, Brent, about really, culture war issues. It was a big resonating topic during last year's presidential election. Obviously, as we know, the infamous they them commercial that President Trump literally ran every Sunday during NFL Sunday, which depicted Kamala Harris. Obviously, Kamala Harris is for they them, Donald Trump's for you. I mean, that resonated. Obviously, that's not going to be the same impact, I think, in New Jersey. And I was kind of surprised because on a panel, especially with like someone like, who's very woke, like Sophie Nieto Munoz, I thought like, oh, this is a gimme. She's going to throw a trans question out there. There seems to be this conversation about, oh, the trans community is under attack and blah, blah, blah. But it didn't come up, even though I think Jack was smart when talking about protecting kids, he was smart to kind of throw that in there. Now, he got some boos from the Cheryl supporters, but I think it was smart to kind of remind people like, hey, biological boys playing in girl sports, that's not cool. Don't you want to protect kids? I thought it was very smart of Jack to insert that in there, considering that it wasn't talked about. But I think it was equally as smart for Cheryl not to take the bait, because I think had she done that, it could have been that they-them moment that doomed one of the many things that doomed Kamala Harris. But I think that was one of the things that really doomed Harris last year. It could have doomed Cheryl. I think she was smart not to take the bait on that one. What do you think?
Culture war issues were a big deal 2 years ago during the 2020 legislative elections. And it's something that, there was a lot of talk about, windmills and LGBTQ issues. And it was a major part of that election. And Republicans lost ground in the legislature. And I felt like you saw not all Republicans, but some middle of the road Republicans kind of retreat on that after that. It made a lot of sense to talk about this in the primary, in the Republican primary, and even in the Democratic primary to warn about it. I don't know if you're going to see in a general election that's so much on affordability and so much about reaction to what's going on nationally, if you're going to see culture wars be that big of a deal. But yeah, I thought it was unexpected, meaning they were talking about vaccinations, I think, and Jack brought it up and said, what does she have to say about biological males playing in female sports? So he did try and get it in there. I just don't know how much it's going to be a factor in not a national stage. I'm sorry, in a general election in a blue leaning, getting more purple state.
Sure. Brent, interesting. Dem operatives I talked to in the last few weeks had said to me, hey, it should be a warning sign that the DNC and the DGA is pumping even more money into New Jersey. It almost gives me the sense that they maybe kind of took this race for granted and said, well, New Jersey's a pretty reliable blue state. Yes, now again, Republicans have made some inroads in registrations, right? It used to be like 1.1, 1.2 more registered Democrats. Now it's like 800,000, which again, it's still a nice advantage for Dems. And obviously I think independents will decide this race like they always do. But at the end of the day, I think a lot of Dem operatives were saying to me, Fernando, people I talked to were like, well, they're pumping more millions into New Jersey than they probably would have liked. They would have liked to take that money and put it into Virginia, which is another high, visible. The only two gubernatorial races in this cycle is Virginia and New Jersey. A lot of Dem operatives saying to me, hey, it might be a warning sign and a red flag that, 43 days to go, they still need another $1.5 million to help Cheryl because she still isn't winning people over. What are you hearing about some Dem operatives maybe saying the same thing to you, or what are you overhearing in circles?
Yeah, I've heard that money is I also want to say the debate yesterday, because you mentioned Sophie, and Sophie's a friend and a dogged reporter, and she did a very good job on the panel yesterday. I just wanted to give a shout out to Sophie. But yeah, I'm hearing money in the race is a big question. You see, Democrats have poured a ton. Republicans will paint that as saying that it's a panic move and shows that they really feel like there's a race there. And you're starting to see more Republican money come in. I've heard from sources that it could be as much as 6 million coming from the RGA by the end of the month. And that's a big question to see how much it is they are going to spend, because they didn't spend as much in 2021. And many saw that as a sign that maybe the RGA was punting on the race, and maybe the Jack might have done a little better if they put more money in at that point. So they also have to worry about, national Republicans have to worry about next year's midterms, and keeping a hold of the House and the Senate. And if you are spending too much money here on a race like this, you might not have more to do next year. So it's a matter of where Republicans want to pick their battles. But more money than last time, definitely already. I think there is a sense that this is a flippable seat and that they don't want to ignore that. And I think you'll see more money coming from the Republican side in the coming weeks.
Brent, certainly, we were there yesterday at Rider University. And by the way, again, great job by all the staff at Rider University, Micah Rasmussen, all the AV team. I mean, it was such a professional presentation yesterday. I mean, really, a great.
It was a big affair. It was like the biggest debate I've seen, like scope wise. Like it was just a lot of moving parts. And
obviously, during the pre-show, you saw Joey Fox from the Jersey Globe. They're doing a good pre-show. Obviously, the post-show. Again, great job by the Jersey Globe and on New Jersey. Laura Jones moderating. Great job by everybody. Certainly, as you alluded to. But, obviously, as I was looking at the debate, they were sitting there in the press area. I was on my phone. I was also on Twitter watching the developments, obviously, in Arizona during the Charlie Kirk Memorial Service. Almost 100,000 people packed into the Arizona Cardinals Stadium out there in Arizona. Tens of thousands outside watching, I guess in a mobile tent, whatever. Certainly last, 10 days has been polarizing, Brent. And I think for people like you and I in the media, certainly someone, listen, you're not polarizing by any means. You write good articles, you call balls and strikes fairly. I know I'm polarizing. That's fine. I own it. But the point is, I think it's sort of giving us a reminder, man, about, being in the public eye, whether we're as journalists that you and I are, or other high visible people. Obviously there's no room for political violence.
No.
Certainly one of the questions asked, I think, early on during the debate was whether or not, and I know that State Senators Stack and Steinhardt collectively, I think, plan on introducing a bill in the state Senate about codifying political violence as a hate crime.
A hate crime, yep.
We saw the death of Charlie Kirk. I was at NJCU, for people that don't know, New Jersey University in Jersey City, for the investiture of its 13th president. And as I'm sitting there watching my good friend Andres Acebo take the oath of office as the new president, I'm seeing Twitter blow up and seeing that horrible image that I can never unsee again.
Yeah, it's
Charlie Kirk. And now, we're living in this polarizing time where, yes, it is inflammatory rhetoric on both sides. I can at least be intellectually honest and say that. But now that we know this, the problem is that, Brent, as highly visible people for you, as you and I, we're journalists, we're out there. Whatever we publish or say can be, construed in certain ways by certain people. It can make us targets. It's a very scary time, I think, for high visible individuals. And I don't know if there's a magic wand to fix this, Brent.
No, and it has been so difficult seeing. When I started in politics, covering politics 12 years ago, it was not this. And something has happened, whether it be social media, whether it be, national political figures inflaming tensions. It is, whether it's just the way that the world has just gotten angrier. It's terrifying and scary to think that someone doing their job, which is what Charlie Kirk was doing, whether you agree with him or not, can just be shot in public and his family lose a father and a husband. No one should die doing anything like that. And it's a sobering moment. And I wrote about this in my weekly What Makes Jersey Run newsletter on NJ.com about what kind of effect could Charlie Kirk's assassination have on the race, whether it be to mobilize Republicans, to drive up debate, the debate about free speech. And I so far we haven't seen it move the needle a lot, but that yesterday's event, in Arizona was clearly largely attended and had a lot of buzz on social media. And I even had a Republican operative tell me today that, that could be a few points for Jack. I don't know how much it's going to play a direct effect on this race, but it does seem to be that a major nerve was struck, um, for arguments for grief and arguments to proliferate. And I don't know how you put the genie back in the bottle at this point, but I sure hope that political violence doesn't get worse, and we could find some way to not have this be the end result.
Amen to that. Obviously, we saw each other during the media scrum. I got to say this, and again, great job by the staff at the New Jersey Globe on New Jersey, the staff for the campaign themselves. I don't know about you, man, being sports fans, and again, I don't like 3-hour press conferences with coaches or managers, but my God, 10 minutes each for the candidates when you haven't literally, and I was looking around, Brent, I counted like 45 media, decals on people's necks, obviously, and members of the media there. I mean, for 10 minutes, I mean, you got to be aggressive. I mean, you know me, I'm right in the front. I'm always trying to ask a question, as are you, as are others. I know some were denied. I know that Charles Style, who I like to sort of pick on this program, Chucky was put in the penalty box by Jack. I thought that was kind of interesting.
Long running issue between the two of them, from what I understand.
Yeah, certainly. And, as I said to Chuck, I'm like, TDS at some point catches up to you. But the point is that 10 minutes, I don't think seems to be enough, man. I get the campaigns are very calculated. They don't want to let the candidates kind of, maybe stick their foot in their mouth or some liability could come out of their mouth, right, during the scrum. But 10 minutes, man, again, sports fans, I'm not saying 45 an hour, but it's got to be more than 10 minutes, bro. I mean, am I wrong?
No, you're not wrong. It does seem to be there's a paradox about media now that more so than ever, we are able to get our message out on all kinds of platforms at all times of day. You can get whatever information you want at all times. But there does seem to be that there's a lot people maybe because of that, candidates aren't as willing to answer whatever questions you have of you, and they want you to stay on topic. So the more open we get with media, the more closed maybe politicians get. It does seem to be like I'm missing the days of you could go to an event and ask whatever you want at all times. And, it's just this a symptom of the world. And our job is just continue to go and continue to ask whatever questions we have to be fair and to make sure you hold people accountable while being fair. And it's a tough job. It's not easy being a journalist. It's not easy playing that balancing act, but it does get harder when there's not enough time to ask those questions, but you got to keep going and you got to keep asking.
Absolutely. Before I let you go, and folks, again, it's 7:58 here on the East Coast. We're about to wrap up here with politics reporter from NJ Advanced Media, Brent Johnson, here on the program. Folks, again, like, comment, and share. It goes a long way in helping the program reach more people here via the Jersey First Television Network. Brent, got to pick your brain here. We'll start first, being baseball fans. The beloved New York Metropolitans, 80-76 right now. 6 games to go. Obviously, the division well out of reach. I think maybe sometime in late July, as the Phillies really cruised ahead in the National League East. Right now, they're tied with Cincinnati. Arizona only a game behind. The Giants even 3 games behind.
Yeah.
Last 6 games to close out the season. A, is Carlos Mendoza on the hot seat for you as a Met fan, and B, where did the season go wrong when last year they got off to a bad start, got hot late, went to the National League Championship Series? This year got off to a really good start and then kind of fizzled since, I believe, June 13th. What went wrong in Queens?
Yeah, last year now seems like so much more special. It was so wonderful being a Mets fan. And it's funny you mentioned Charlie Style, who's a longtime friend and colleague, and my boss Tom Martello are both big Yankee fans, and they thought their season was going to be tough, and that the Mets were starting to become more of a Big Brother type threat, and that's not the case. And this has been the most maddening, disappointing, nerve-wracking. And the Mets have a lot of them. Being a Mets fan is basically being a character in a Greek tragedy at all points in your life. And it teaches you a lot about life, but it also isn't easy to deal with. And this may be one of the worst. I mean, we lived through the collapse of 2007 and 2008. This might be worse because the expectations were so high. Juan Soto and Pete Alonso back, and all the highest payroll in baseball. And to see that this might even be a possibility, if not likely, of a collapse and they don't make the playoffs is insane. And so you have to think everyone's in the hot seat almost. You wonder how much of an overhaul you're going to see. And uh, Pete Alonso is my all-time favorite player. I have his behind me. I have his autograph and his banners. And to think that he might be a casualty of this if they have to clean house and they might not bring him back next year. So I hope that they can right the ship in the final 6 days. You got to believe is the team motto, but who the hell knows? This is it's not fun. It is, and there's no Mets game tonight. And I had the paradox of being out thinking about like, there's no Mets game tonight, thank God. But also, what am I going to watch after I get done with this interview?
Well, I mean, it's a good Monday Night Football game tonight. So
it's true, it is, and
yeah.
I wish I could say that the Giants, the team that my family roots for, is doing any better. But I guess it could be worse. I guess you could be a Jets fan. So
absolutely. On the flip side, the Yankees 2 games out with 6 to play. I think that not enough time. I think the Blue Jays, unless the Blue Jays have like a ridiculous collapse this week,
they'll get the first wild card spot, and then they'll play at home.
Yeah.
And who knows? The question is, does Aaron Judge, perform in the postseason? The greatest player of his, with all due respect to Shohei Ohtani, the greatest player of his generation, Aaron Judge. Can he perform in the postseason? Anything? Well, you just got to get there. That's the thing about the Mets. That's what's so maddening. You just got to get there, guys.
Just get there. Now, again, starting tomorrow, the Blue Jays host the Red Sox. It's almost like, what am I rooting for? Diarrhea or a headache here? I mean,
you still got to. If the Braves were playing the Phillies, I still got to root against the Phillies.
Absolutely.
I guess you got to root against the Red Sox.
It's going to be an interesting final 6 games here as we approach October and the postseason. Brent, real quick, I know you're a very dedicated musician. Yeah. Certainly have heard your music. And a funny story, I was driving home the other day, and I have Sirius satellite radio, so I'm always listening to that. But occasionally I'll listen to terrestrial radio. As you know, we talked off the air. Big sports fan like yourself. I'm listening to WFAN 101.9 FM. Like to call in regularly. I get on, fortunately. Not a lot of Fernando from Union City calling in, so the screeners kind of know who I am.
I'll have to listen for you next time, yeah.
But in any event, I was just listening to regular terrestrial radio, and I was, listening to 104.3. And I think, it's the classic rock station in the New York, New Jersey market. And I heard the DJ talking about, oh my God, check out this classic rock marathon. And they started with Bon Jovi, and I almost drove off the road, Brent, when I hear stations. And I get it. You have to kind of cater to a certain demographic and everything else. The data, the metrics will tell you, well, this is what's, playable, and this is what's amenable to people. But it is, again, and I'm older than you are, but my man, to hear the words classic rock and then hear bands like Bon Jovi, Poison, Def Leppard, it's insulting to me. Now, I'm not even a musician. I'm a karaoke singer, devoted one at that. But you're a musician, bro.
Yes.
When you hear that, I mean, on a scale of 1 to 10, how much furniture do you want to throw around in the house?
Yeah, I don't consider those bands classic rock yet. But then again, I've also heard Nirvana, like bands that came later, like in the 90s, played on classic rock stations now. So, like, I guess either it's just a sign that we're all getting older and we just don't want to admit it, but you mentioned that the last time the Republican won the presidential race in 1988 was in New Jersey. It was 1988. I mean, I was thinking it was around the time that Bon Jovi put out New Jersey, and that didn't seem like that very long ago to me. That like Bad Medicine was a number one hit. I remember listening to that as a kid. And now we have to think that's like, that's almost 40 years ago. But yeah, I still don't believe that's classic rock. The classic rock, and like I'll consider Springsteen, Billy Joel, the Eagles, Eric Clapton, the Beatles, obviously Rolling Stones.
Zeppelin, right? Let's Zeppelin.
I'll still say 1985, anything after 85, that's not classic rock yet. Give us the mid 80s for Christ's sake.
Yeah. I mean, again, even when I heard Bananarama on Q, I'm like, wait a minute. The Bananarama is not. No. I'm sorry. And I love 80s pop. I grew up on 80s, 90s. Listen, again, on my Sirius XM station, there's the 80s, 90s, 2000s, and 2010s. And I'm like, and I listen to all of it, as well as, electronic and EDM and stuff like that. But it was insulting, like Bananarama. I'm like, wait, what? I mean,
yeah.
I mean, it kind of makes you wonder. It's like, who are the station managers here?
And who are they catering to? Who are the people who are tuning in to hear Bananarama on 104.3?
Oh, God, it makes you wonder. But, Brent, again, great job as always tonight with breaking down the debate. What can we look forward to? I know I love reading your newsletter every week.
Yeah, every Thursday.
But other than the election coming up, what can we look forward to from NJ Advanced Media?
Oh, we always have a lot of great things. Our video team, run by Natalie Patterson and Sean Sullivan and Lauren Raposa, they've been doing a lot of great work. covering stuff on TikTok, which is becoming a major platform in journalism. And, great projects coming up from my colleague Sue Livio and a bunch of other. We're doing a lot of big projects, and obviously the Ledger is no longer a print product, but we're still doing a lot of important work on NJ.com and in the digital editions.
Brent, prediction time. I'm calling Jack by a field goal in 43 days. How do you see the race?
It is really a toss up. Right now, I think it's too close to call, but I would not be surprised if Cettarelli won by one. Okay. And I would not be surprised if she won by one. So, there's definitely a world out there where we have a Republican governor again, because that's been the case for most of history in the last half century, that we go back and forth between governors in this state. I wouldn't be surprised at that, but it's still a blue state. Yeah. And you have a lot to overcome. So again, fascinating race, fascinating race. Everyone should pay attention.
Brent, will I see you at the League of Municipalities coming up in November? Or,
yes, I will be there. Yep, and I'll be at the next debate. I'll be at the League. Basically, anywhere you see major political gatherings, me and my newsletter will be there.
Folks, if it's politics, he's covering it. He's the politics reporter for NJ Advanced Media. Folks, he's Brent Johnson. Brent, real quick, your handles here for people that don't follow you on social media.
Yeah, I have a weird handle, JOHNSB01. Just search Brent Johnson NJ. It'll come up. Follow me on Twitter, on TikTok. I now have a TikTok page. I did a video from the debate last night that you should go check out. So it's the new brave new world. Even though I'm 42, you got to keep it up, as you know, Fernando, with the podcast and everything. You got to reach new people, and that's what you got to do. So, folks,
if you don't know who Brent Johnson is, you see that handsome guy in the promo photo right behind me. That's how you look for him. Again, he's the politics reporter for NJ Advanced Media. Brent, good to see you again. Best of luck, obviously, with your great work. And I'll see you here with 43 days to go on the campaign trail. Take care.
Thank you, Fernando. Great to be here.
Take care. Bye-bye. Folks, good stuff there with Brent Johnson, the politics reporter for NJ Advanced Media. Folks, a little after 8 o'clock here on the East Coast. And we appreciate you tuning in here for the latest edition of Real Talk. Look at the numbers here. Nice viewership on X as well as on YouTube. Also on Facebook. And folks, again, I can't say enough that without all of you at home, these numbers would not be possible. So I appreciate you guys tuning in here and certainly making this once again a part of your Monday night viewing. As I say it all the time, folks, it takes just a few seconds. Like, comment, and share. It helps get the program out to more people. As, again, your leader in independent media here in the state of New Jersey, it's always Real Talk via the Jersey First Television Network. Well, folks, it's what you've been waiting for. It's time for final thoughts. And yes, folks, it's election season. We just talked for a good hour with Brent Johnson from NJ Advanced Media about the gubernatorial race, but certainly throughout New Jersey, we have all 80 state assembly races up for grabs, as well as very important municipal races. And here in Hudson County, where I reside, obviously a lot of interesting mayoral races, certainly in the city of Kearney, the city of Secaucus, the township of Guttenberg, without a doubt, the city of Hoboken. But of course, in Hudson County's largest city, Jersey City, the mayoral race has gotten very contentious and very fickle for everyone tuning at home. But what's interesting, folks, is obviously they're very different candidates running in Jersey City. Certainly, we have County Commissioner Bill O'Day, who will be coming up on the show in just a couple of weeks. You want to tune in for that. Certainly, Christina Freeman, current Jersey City Police Department police officer, who's just on a couple of weeks ago. As a matter of fact, last week, great traffic on that episode as well. Along with former Governor Jim McGreevey, who right now seems to be the perennial front runner going into a potential runoff in December in Jersey City, along with, of course, woke warrior Musab Ali, who, let's be honest, I mean, if he gets 3% of the vote, that'll be a miracle for Musab Ali, who recently hosted anti-Semite Ilhan Omar, a member of the House of Representatives in Jersey City on Grove Street, right in front of City Hall on Saturday. Don't know what the turnout was like, but, hey, listen, if you want to invite an anti-Semite to Jersey City, well, you can always rely on Musab Ali to do that. And, of course, relying on Ilhan Omar to accommodate that during this election cycle. And, of course, folks, we have progressive James Solomon, the current councilman in the downtown section in Ward E. It was interesting, obviously, right next door, the current mayor of Hoboken and one of the Democrat Assembly candidates who got across the finish line in the 32nd Legislative District. As we all know, resident woke fool Ravi Bala came out recently in endorsing James Solomon for his race. As we all know, James Solomon endorsed Ravi Bala and fellow woke fool Katie Brennan during the primary this past June in the 32nd Legislative District. And shout out to John Highness. Excellent reporting. Folks, if you don't check out the Hudson County View on a daily basis, what are you waiting for? Again, go to HudsonCountyView.com. Make sure you like it on Facebook. Of course, follow it on Instagram and X. Great content there every single day. By really, again, he's got better rhymes than I do, but the most handsome face that runs the place. Yes, John Highness there, the editor of the Hudson County View, always great reporting. And he did give us this story here, certainly talking about Hoboken Mayor Ravi Bala endorsing James Solomon for the upcoming mayoral seat in 43 days. Now, Ravi Bala says, quote, "I'm proud to endorse James because I know he's going to be a mayor who leads on the issues that matter for Jersey City. Affordability, housing, and ensuring every child gets a quality education. Along with James has always been on the side of the people, and I know he's wait for it because Ravi Bala can't help himself, right? I know he's going to lead with honesty and integrity while also standing up to Donald Trump. The development was telegraphed a long time ago as Solomon backed Bala in his unsuccessful bid for the House of Representatives last year when he challenged freshman U.S. Representative Rob Menendez in the 8th Congressional District. Now, Solomon also endorsed Bala's running mate, Katie Brennan, who formally backed him for mayor last month. Brennan spoke at Solomon's campaign launch last year, an event that also was attended by Ravi Bala. Certainly, check out this bullshit right here. Mayor Bala's leadership in Hoboken has been inspiring. How? God, James, I like you, Mayor. You're a nice guy. You've always been a gentleman to me, but come on, bro. How can you say this bullshit with a straight face here? Mayor Bala's leadership in Hoboken has been inspiring. What? Property taxes going up? All the rats that are in Hoboken, not just the rats working at City Hall, but the infestation of rodents in Jersey City, in Hoboken. Excuse me. Or the fact that Ravi Bala, along with the Lollipop Guild, we all know who they are. Joe Quintero, who I wouldn't trust to represent me in a traffic stop in municipal court. I mean, folks, a living embodiment that anybody can get a law degree, resides there with Joe Quintero. But of course, the rest of the Lollipop Guild, obviously, mayoral candidate Emily Jabor, the prom queen, along with the charisma vacuum Jim Doyle, and of course, the guy with arguably the largest nostrils in modern political history, Phil Cohen. And no, Phil, that's not anti-Semitic jab. I know plenty of people. Listen, I have a huge head, okay? If you want to go and make fun of me on social media and say, oh, look at the size of Fernando's cranium, okay, I'm not going to turn around and be like, well, Phil Cohen, he just hates Cubans, What an anti-Cuban comment. No, Phil, you're looking for a reason to cry victim about everything. But the point is that, again, the Lollipop Guild has been responsible for the demise of Hoboken. And the reason that Hoboken's going to shit certainly is under their administration, but of course led by Ravi Bala. So, James, I like you, man. You're a good guy. You're a very decent human, fellow academic, great guy to talk football with in general and politics. But come on, man, really? Who are you trying to convince here with this bullshit? I'm honored to receive his support. Bala has been a bold leader. Wait for this bullshit here, especially on transportation and safe streets. Yes, as people are being openly assaulted in Hoboken in broad daylight, whether it's at Church Court Park or at night near the Hoboken Shelter or on Washington Street. Because we all know that when it comes to Ravi Bala, he's more concerned with pronouns than property taxes and public safety. So I don't know if taking an endorsement from a clown like Ravi Bala is the best political move, James. Again, you're a smart guy politically, but who's advising you? Oh, that's right. And folks, a little context here. Jersey City is always full of insufferable progressives. And I know this firsthand, with a concerted effort to attempt to cancel me this past summer. We all know, obviously, what happened with the debacle of the mayoral forum that was going to be hosted by myself along with John Highness from the Hudson County View. And certainly, folks, there was no shortage of insufferable progressives, insufferable obese feminists, and members of the alphabet mob in Jersey City, take your pick, that made sure to make a stink about my participation in hosting any sort of candidate forum. Because, again, God forbid you have real journalists on like John Highness and Fernando Uribe to host candidate forums, right? And ones that won't put you to sleep like other candidate forums or other debates that I've seen in recent weeks. Now, having said that, what's interesting is kind of makes you wonder whether or not James Solomon is getting the best political advice or best campaign advice. Of course, I know that he has to, acquiesce to all the social justice clowns and woke fools in Jersey City, along with, we all know who they are, the obese feminists, all the smelly cat ladies, the alphabet mob that all, have their hissy fits about national issues. When at the end of the day, folks, in Jersey City, residents care about their garbage being picked up, or whether or not their streets are going to be plowed during the winter when it comes to an overaccumulation of snow, or whether we'll see an improvement in services for our seniors, whether or not we'll see a rec program that's going to help our kids stay out of trouble in Jersey City. See, those are the issues that matter, right? But don't tell that to some of the insufferable women in Jersey City. Again, I just mentioned some of them, the obese feminists and all the alphabet mob crusaders, right, that attempted to cancel me. And by the way, I'm still here. It's September 22nd, the first day of fall, and I'm still on the air. Or attempts to demonetize me or cost me money in my pocket or try to vilify me in the social media echo chamber. Well, that didn't work. I'm still here. But what's always interesting, folks, is the insufferable women in Jersey City that are trying to either support James Solomon or outright work for James Solomon and provide advice. Well, when I think of insufferable women in Jersey City politics, I think of Stuart Thomas, right? And I think of whiny bitches like Stuart Thomas. And I don't mind saying that to Stuart Thomas. Unlike you, Stuart, again, if I ever run into you, I don't got a problem saying that to your face. I don't got a problem saying that to your scrawny ass. Unlike you that would rather, again, it seems like you can't keep my name out of your mouth when it comes to opining about Fernando Uribe. And that's fine. That's okay. I get it. You're not the most masculine person walking. So, to expect feminine behavior, it should be right up your alley. But again, folks, you would think that in a race that's going to be as tight as it is in Jersey City, right? You would think that, again, it's the local issues. All politics is local. Brent Johnson, my guest tonight, said it perfectly. All politics is local. Okay? The idea that somehow identity and pronouns and all the culture war bullshit that women like Stuart Thomas, again, blow a load in their pants about, don't resonate with regular Jersey City people, with that single mom working 2 jobs, having to decide between daycare, food, rent, car payments, or whatever. Or seniors that are worried about their property taxes going up in Jersey City. These are the issues that matter. But don't tell that to women like Stuart Thomas. Stuart Thomas would rather advise James Solomon, hey, you got to make sure you invoke Trump whenever you can. Because the reason that the south side of Jersey City is an absolute shithole and crime infested is, of course, President Trump's fault. Right? To narrow-minded clowns like Stuart Thomas, that's the talking point that somehow thinks is going to get James Solomon across the finish line. That remains to be seen. But folks, at the end of the day, all politics is local. As I said before, it's not about pronouns. It's not about identity. It's not about making sure there's all-inclusive bathrooms. Now, which one, Stuart Thomas decides to use, that's between him and looking in the mirror. But the point is, the issues that matter to Jersey City residents are not the ones I would argue that Stuart Thomas is trying to invoke during this election cycle. And I get it that in downtown Jersey City and the progressive base, yes, everybody blows a load in their pants and everyone's ejaculating about, oh my God, about how woke you are and how make sure we're using the right pronouns in your email signatures and making sure that we're cuddling the alphabet mob at every single turn in Jersey City. No, folks, as I said before, people care about their property taxes. People care about whether or not maybe the sales tax might go up in Jersey City. People care about parking, public safety, property taxes. Those are the real P words during this election cycle, Stewie. Not pronouns and the other identity nonsense that, again, you seem to be fixated on. Now, I'm not auditioning to be a campaign operative, but James Solomon's a really smart guy. Why you're taking advice from this woman is beyond me. Now, again, we'll see if it gets James Solomon across the finish line. We'll see. But folks, without a doubt, with so many candidates in the Jersey mayoral race, there's no question there's going to be a runoff in December. No question. Who's going to be there? Well, that remains to be seen. But if you ask me today who Fernando Uribe is picking in this mayoral race in Jersey City, again, realistically, I think we have to look at Jim McGreevey and Bill O'Day. Now, when it comes to their tickets and council, the wards and at large, folks, that's hard to say. There's some incumbents I think will get across the finish line. I think Danny Rivera, the current at-large councilman, will get across the finish line. Certainly, Frank Gilmore in Ward F will get across the finish line. But other than that, it's hard to call all the races. It's hard to call, the at-large seats, the wards. I would put some stock behind the McGreevey candidates for sure. I think that, folks, it's no accident that former Governor Jim McGreevey is the front runner in this race. Name recognition, a clear record. He's been on this show multiple times, outlining his vision for Jersey City. And we'll have Bill O'Day on in a couple of weeks, so we'll talk to Bill O'Day. I just talked to Christina Freeman last week. Waiting to hear back from Joyce Waterman. Hopefully try to get her on. I don't expect James Solomon to come on here, again, because of women like Stuart Thomas, where I've interviewed James Solomon before on my podcast, and we've always had great conversations. I guess Stewie thinks that just pandering and appealing to progressives and the woke crowd in Jersey is enough to get you across the finish line. Well, Stewie, we'll find out. Remains to be seen with 43 days to go. But again, folks, when it comes to virtue signaling and gaslighting and hyperbolic manufactured hysteria during this election cycle, yeah, especially about yours truly, yeah, you can always rely on women like Stuart Thomas. And those are my final thoughts. Folks, special comment tonight here on the broadcast. And I want to take the high road here, but, it's hard when, you have children in New Jersey media, establishment media especially, that somehow haven't gotten the memo or learned about the toxicity of Trump derangement syndrome. And when I think about Trump derangement syndrome in New Jersey, folks, there's no shortage of guilty parties. We have awful news sites like Insider NJ, led by Max Pizarro, who, by the way, is it really a surprise that Max Pizarro wasn't at the debate last night in Lawrenceville on the campus of Rider University? Of course not. That will require Max Pizarro to do actual work. We all know that lazy bastard is allergic to work. Or Uncle Dave, David Cruz with NJ Spotlight News. Who I think it's kind of funny to see Uncle Dave asking for financial support from viewers when, again, David, it's you have to kind of give the market a good product. Sure, you can blame Republicans in Washington, sure, but you have to blame Democrats in Trenton that cut $75 million from funding from NJPBS and NJ Spotlight News. Why do Democrats hate the media? No, I think they've come around to knowing that it's a shit product. And I get it. You were put in an impossible position, David, when Michael Aaron decided to transition away from his duties at NJ Spotlight News, right? Whether it's hosting Reporters Roundtable, which I still watch, or people bring it to my attention. All right. So you were put in an impossible situation. You would have to succeed Michael Aaron. Those are almost impossible shoes to fill. So credit to you for stepping up, but let's be honest, folks, and the jury's out, and we can sort of have a clear and decisive verdict here. David Cruz does not fill those shoes adequately. So when legislators in Trenton are thinking about, well, what should we fund? Well, I wouldn't want to fund NJPBS either when they're giving out a bad product led by David Cruz. But aside from Uncle Dave and other TDS sycophants in New Jersey, we have Matt Friedman, who, again, what a surprise, not at Rider University yesterday. So, of course, Political New Jersey sends Daniel Hahn. By the way, nice diamond earring there, Daniel. I'm not sure. I think that might have gone out of style during the George Bush administration. The father, not the son. But in any event, good reporting by Daniel Hahn. I like to read his stuff, and he's a good reporter. But not a surprise to not see Matt Freeman there at Rider University. Of course, he's too busy ejaculating in his own pants about homegrown weed and how many blunts he gets to roll in the privacy of his own home in upstate New York. But folks, one of the things about Trump derangement syndrome is that it is contagious. We see it all the time, whether it's women like Jay Lasseter, dinosaurs in the business like Alan Steinberg and Bob Hennelly, virtue signalers like John Van Vliet, but we all know, folks. But I would argue that at some point, enough Trump derangement syndrome catches up to you. And that's one of the things I want to talk about during my breakdown of last night's debate at Rider University. Now, again, I was fortunate enough to be in the media scrum, again, as a credentialed member of the press, to ask some questions of the candidates. I was fortunate enough. And again, a special thank you to Representative Rebecca Sherrill and Jack Ciattarelli for taking my questions and answering them. Maybe not to the best of everyone's satisfaction, but again, they answered the questions. And you decide for yourself how they answered them. But what was interesting, folks, during the media scrum was Charles. And again, now, full disclosure, I was impressed. And let me give you a round of applause. Congratulations to Chucky working on a Sunday. I mean, my goodness. So much so that when I saw Chucky near the media area, I could not resist the temptation. So why not chirp a little bit? And maybe this is the Cuban in me que quiere un poquito bochinche. And you know what? Like un poquito chumeria. Yeah, you know what? When you see someone you don't like, again, and for everyone that's Cuban, you understand this premise, right? When you see someone you don't like, it takes a lot of self-control to not want to say something. Or, tú sabes, ser un poquito chancletero. Folks, when you see someone as insufferable as Charles Style, I could not resist the opportunity. There was a softball down the middle of the plate, so I took it, and I swung.
Not permitted to re-enter. No exceptions. This is a live broadcast. We're going live in 2 minutes. We need you to be seated
Charles
as
working
soon
on
as
a
possible.
Sunday.
And then
Hey,
I'm going to be back in just
Look
a
at you
couple of
working on a
seconds to walk
Sunday.
through
Holy shit. This
Then
is
at 7 o'clock
something else.
sharp.
Look at you
7
working on a
o'clock sharp, we're
Sunday.
going live. But I'm
Look at
going to
this
say
miracle.
6:50.
I mean, folks, it is a miracle to see Chucky working on a Sunday. Oh my goodness. And again, I don't have any footage. I did not, I was sort of squished in there among all the other journalists there in the media scrum, but to see Jack Ciattarelli not take a question from Charles Style, well, again, Chuck, I mean, I know you're in your mid to late 90s. I mean, at some point, the light bulb should go off, dude. Like, you write enough polarizing columns. You continue to engage in Trump derangement syndrome. You continue to acquiesce and just espouse left-wing propaganda. Sooner or later, Chuck, that's going to catch up to you. Sooner or later, people are not going to talk to you because you stop being a journalist and you proceed to become a propagandist. We all know the types, right? Tom Moran with the Star Ledger for many years, Ron Zentlinger and Josh Rosario with the Jersey Journal, right? Uncle Dave with NJ Spotlight News. Again, folks, Trump derangement syndrome continues to be a serious problem among the press here in New Jersey. So, and I'm sure that Chuck, on his next appearance at Reporters Roundtable with David Cruz, I'm sure they'll have a moment where they'll get to bitch and moan together and menstruate together about, oh my God, look at the attack on the free press. Oh my goodness, look at candidates not respecting journalists. No, Chuck, again, and I had to laugh. I'm sure you heard me laughing because I made a point to make sure you heard me laughing. Chuck, again, you seem like a nice, decent guy. But my God, dude, sooner or later, enough Trump derangement syndrome is going to get you alienated and people are not going to want to talk to you. People talk to me and I'm as overt a conservative as there is, but there's something called calling balls and strikes fairly, which is what I do on this show, which is why, again, as the leader in independent media here in New Jersey, is why people talk to me. It's why credentialed journalists talk to me. It's why elected officials from both sides of the aisle talk to me. Yeah, I can be a little polarizing. I'm Cuban. I'm a little chuma. I'm a little chancletero. But, folks, I'm a professional journalist. Never forget that. Somewhere along the lines, I think Chuck forgot about putting down his partisanship and his disdain for the president of the United States and just calling balls and strikes fairly. Chuck, again, if you want to avoid another embarrassing moment like last night, do better. That's all. That's all I'm asking. I'm not the press police here. I'm not the police of journalism and what's good journalism and bad. No one anointed me or deputized me as the sheriff here. But folks, here on this show, I continue to bring you real journalism with real traffic because it's real talk. I don't know, Chuck. There's a lesson to be there. There's a lesson to be learned there, bro. Do better, and maybe candidates will want to talk to you. Just saying. But what do I know? You've been in this business like 70 years. What do I know? Think about it. Folks, again, another special comment tonight, obviously, and as you know, talk about last night's debate at Rider University. Great energy, folks, in the building at Rider University. If you weren't there, let me just give you a little sense of how vibrant it was on the campus of Rider University.
Jack.
Oh, good stuff there. Good stuff there last night, and certainly a very energized crowd. A lot of enthusiasm from both teams. Obviously, you had people rooting for Jack Chiarelli last night. You had people rooting for Rebecca Sherrill. It was, I would say, maybe evenly divided in the building, but without a doubt, folks, throughout the evening, again, calling balls and strikes fairly. Jack Chiarelli, I would argue, won this on points, as they say, if you sort of evoke a boxing analogy here. No knockouts last night, but you win enough rounds on points, I think you could say, listen, again, and to Brent Johnson's point earlier tonight, maybe there isn't a winner or a loser of the debate, but, you know, who was able to get their message out better? I would just argue that Jack Chiarelli did a better job. In fairness, Representative Sherrill did not embarrass herself. Representative Sherrill did not overperform, to be fair. But let's be honest, folks, as I talked about last night on my debate night recap, which again, you can check out on the Jersey First YouTube page, as well as all of my social media platforms. Good traffic, by the way, for last night's debate night in New Jersey recap show shortly after the debate at Rider University. But again, for a debate where I think Representative Shaw had to come out swinging and maybe score some really big body blows and punches, I think she failed to do that, if we're being intellectually honest about it. I think she didn't hurt herself, but I don't think she overperformed either, which I think is what she had to do. But during the media scrum, and again, I thank both of them for taking questions from me. Let's start first with Representative Sherrill, who took my question during the media scrum.
Representative, quick question here. I know you've mentioned the president a lot tonight, but certainly president a lot tonight. But in fairness, Chiarelli mentioned that the Democrats have controlled the legislature for over 20 years. They've passed bills, they've passed inflated budgets. At the same time, Democrats have caused a lot of the economic peril that residents are feeling. What can you tell New Jerseyans tonight about whether or not you'll stand up to party bosses in the Democrat Party?
Yeah, you know what I find so interesting is that I talked a lot about my brother. And I've stood up to everyone, including really powerful members of my own party. And I think people in this state know exactly that. When it comes to fighting for New Jerseyans, it's what I've always done, it's what I'll always do. I thought it was interesting that Jack didn't talk about Israel, because it's indefensible, because he's raised taxes at every level of government. He talks a lot about going to shore, but I find it interesting that he has voted against Superstorm Sandy coming 3 times. He also supports a president who's cut all funding for the shore. So at every level, he's voted to defund Planned Parenthood. So he continues to have a record that's indefensible in the state, and that's something he did mention.
Again, folks, you can make your own decision there. Did Representative Sherrill answer the question? Again, you decide. But I felt it was a fair question. I know some of our operators were not happy I asked it, but folks, it's a fair question to ask. Is invoking the president's name going to be enough to get across the finish line? Are New Jersey residents that angry at the president that they're forgetting about the highest property taxes in the country? That they're forgetting about the gas tax went up again this year. The tolls on the Turnpike and Parkway went up again this year. They were spending $7 billion in New Jersey to coddle illegals, to provide them health care. Again, these are questions she's going to have to face with 43 days to go. And yes, Democrats have the advantage registration-wise, but independents are going to decide this race. You decide if she answered the question. Now, on the flip side, let's go to Jack Chiarelli, who was nice enough to take one of my questions as well.
Jack, good to see you here tonight. Do you think Representative Sherrill focused too much on the president? Because at the end of the day, it seems like Democrats are just fixing on the TDS that's become the playbook. And do you think that that's a strategy you can exploit in the next 44 days? Your ads are doing that. Do you think you can keep doing that for the next 44 days?
What it is that New Jersey's Republicans every single day, property taxes, local electricity bill, public safety, public education, overdevelopment, trying to do business on the nation. They want to hear answers from candidates speaking specifically to what challenges them every single day of this life. The more she wants to talk about the president in Washington, good for us.
Thanks, Jack.
Again, folks, you can decide for yourself. I appreciate Jack Chiarelli taking my question and certainly providing an answer that, again, you'll have to decide on your own whether or not it served its purpose last night during the media scrum. Again, folks, it was a great experience. I can't say this enough. I want to thank David Wildstein, the great staff of the New Jersey Globe, along with On New Jersey, Laura Jones. Great to talk with her a little bit last night, along with Mr. Wildstein, as well as Micah Rasmussen, the director of the Rebevic Institute of American Politics at Rider University. Great staff there. The audio-visual team doing an incredible job throughout the evening. I mean, folks, this was as professional a layout and presentation as I've ever seen in my few years of journalism and covering politics here in the state of New Jersey. Great job once again by the staff at Rider University. Again, if you didn't catch it last night, if you're watching the Giants Chiefs game or watching a recap of the NFL, nothing for me to brag about, folks, as my Dallas Cowboys fall to 1-2 on this young NFL season, as well as maybe everybody else watching the NFL or watching preseason hockey or watching the pennant races right now in Major League Baseball. But if you missed any part of last night's debate, folks, it's online. Go to the New Jersey Globe website, on Facebook, on Instagram, on YouTube, as well as on X, also on LinkedIn. And you can also check out On New Jersey with the replay there as well. And certainly at the New Jersey Globe website, you can check out the replay. And folks, again, you can check out my recap of last night's debate night in New Jersey, by going to the Jersey First YouTube page, as well as our own website, jerseyfirst.org/TV, as well as my own social media platforms. Folks, another special comment here as we're about to wrap up here tonight. Certainly during the debate, it was hard to ignore the great ceremony last night, the memorial service for Charlie Kirk in Arizona. Dignitaries such as the President of the United States and the Vice President of the United States were in attendance speaking, as well as ex-creator and ex-Tesla founder Elon Musk, along with other great dignitaries throughout the evening, Secretary of State Marco Rubio, in addition to other elected officials and conservative warriors, I would argue, and content creators that supported Turning Points USA. But most importantly, folks, I mean, I'm not sure if you were moved, but I know I was incredibly moved by his widow, Erica Kirk. I can't even imagine the pain she's going through now, having to raise her two children, ages 1 and 3, that'll never get to know their dad. And once again, folks, I can't say this enough. It was a privilege to meet Charlie Kirk back in 2018 when he came to Rutgers University. I got a chance to meet him at a couple other Turning Points events over the years. Great guy, very down to earth. And I was as starstruck as anybody, as I talked about last week on this show, having met Charlie Kirk. But you know what? The easiest guy to talk to, a guy of faith, a guy of family, a guy who loved his country, a guy who welcomed peaceful disagreement and debate on college campuses all across this country. And despite that, he lost his life at the hand of an assassin's bullet. Now, while Erica Kirk last night forgave Charlie Kirk's murderer, well, I'm not as quick to do that. And I hope the justice system works its magic here and that this despicable killer sees justice. Whether that's the death penalty in Utah or whatever else, I don't know. But I hope that he sees justice. And again, a great job by Erica Kirk, a woman of faith and family and a devoted Christian, to really to forgive Charlie Kirk's murderer. That takes a certain type of grace and strength and decorum that I don't think a lot of us have. So God bless her and her family in this very difficult time. And certainly, folks, let's be better people for Charlie Kirk. Let's welcome disagreement. Let's make sure we engage in civil debate. Okay? And I saw a great line here, I think, over the weekend. I'll just sort of look at my notes here. I think one that, really, I think resonates for me. And I've watched Charlie Kirk for years, watching him on Turning Points USA, watching him on campus tours, watching him on YouTube. Listen, I went through over 50 hours of Charlie Kirk's videos as someone who's an Hispanic, as someone who's a person of color. I never saw a racist word, not once. Did he want people to not be engulfed by identity politics? Sure, that's a healthy discussion to have. But what we've seen is progressives and the woke mob and the left and the social justice clowns and the alphabet mob. What they've done is cut snippets and strip context and just shove sound bites around, at the same gullible slob audience that's too lazy to fact check. That's what they've done. That's what the left has done throughout Charlie Kirk's career and now in his death. That isn't exposing racism, folks. Okay? It's manufacturing lies to spark division. I'll say it again. It's manufacturing lies to spark division. That's what the left has been doing since the death of Charlie Kirk. If you watch his appearances on multiple YouTube shows, on platforms like The Young Turks, on Jubilee, on Piers Morgan Uncensored, on his own YouTube page, on college campuses all across this country, he wants you to think. He didn't want you to be indoctrinated. He didn't want you to be sheep like many on the left are. He wants you to think critically and think outside the box. He did that. He succeeded for millions. And if you saw the number of young people yesterday lining up for hours outside the University of Phoenix Stadium in Arizona, the home of the Arizona Cardinals, over 100,000 people were in attendance there last night for Charlie Kirk's memorial service. Tens of thousands were outside watching it on portable screens. Folks, that's what the left is terrified about. You're seeing an influx of young people gravitating to good Christian principles, that of faith, of family, of devotion to Christianity, of devotion to a higher power, to make good life choices, to not continue spewing perpetual victimhood and woke nonsense and all the woke bullshit that's out there. No, folks. It's making sure you think for yourself. That's what Charlie Kirk wanted you to do, and that's what Charlie Kirk inspired you to do. Inspired me and millions more. So, again, as Charlie Kirk was laid to rest yesterday in a memorial service, let's take a moment again to denounce political violence on all sides of the aisle. But now more than ever, to make sure that we keep fighting for his values, which were faith, family, and country. I think we can all agree those are good things as we're coming up to the 250th anniversary of the birth of our republic here in the United States. And that's my special comment. Folks, once again, and I can't say this enough, I think the wording says itself. If you're losing friends over standing up for Charlie Kirk, I can assure you they probably weren't your friends to begin with. They probably didn't have the same moral code you did. I have to reassess what friends you're keeping if it's that divisive when it comes to defending a great Christian and a great American like Charlie Kirk. And we saw that. What did we see yesterday? We saw hundreds of thousands of people inside a stadium in Arizona. We've seen vigils all across this country. Here in New Jersey, some vigils I've had the privilege of being asked to speak at. There's no burning of cars. There's no looting or rioting or vandalizing like we saw for a career criminal 5 summers ago in 2020. No, we saw peaceful demonstrations, candlelight vigils, a focus on Christ and family and country. See the difference, folks? It's not hard to see. Take a moment and think about that. 5 summers ago, what the outrage was and who it was outrage about. Check out the outrage right today. They're not the same, folks. One's a great American, a great citizen, a great father, a great patriot. One's just a career criminal. It's as simple as that. It's not hard to decipher what's a good example of grieving and what isn't. Again, folks, it doesn't take much. I know for some haters out there and people who hate this show, I know that level of critical thinking is way above your pay scale. But try some critical thinking. Try it sometime. Trust me, it goes a long way. And that's our show for this week, folks. Once again, I want to thank my guest tonight, politics reporter for NJ Advance Media, Brent Johnson, for a great conversation about the gubernatorial race, the assembly races, and of course, today's political climate and of course, today's journalism. All that and more. Again, tonight, doing a great conversation with Brent Johnson. Folks, again, it takes 5 seconds. Like, comment, and share tonight's episode of Real Talk via the Jersey First Television Network. Don't forget to like us on Facebook, of course. Follow us on Instagram and X. And don't forget to subscribe to us on YouTube. And, of course, wherever you get your podcasts, on Spotify or SoundCloud, do me a favor. Download Jersey First TV. And trust me, you will not be disappointed. As we'll continue to be the leader in independent media here in the state of New Jersey. And folks, I'm here front and center, educating and advocating for all you great residents here in the Garden State. That's right, folks. It's always Jersey First TV, led by Real Talk with Fernando Uribe, live every Monday night. Check your local listings for start times, folks. Again, we appreciate you making this always a part of your Monday night viewing. For everyone that shares the replays on X, on Facebook, on Instagram, on LinkedIn. Again, without you, the great traffic we continue to enjoy on this show, folks, would not be possible without all of you. To my friends and family, to my frenemies, to colleagues, to neighbors, to even the haters. I know you're tuning in because you can't help yourselves. I appreciate you doing that. Helps my traffic. Because again, folks, it's real conversations because it's real journalism with real traffic because it's real talk. Once again, folks, always remember if it's unbiased, unfiltered, and unafraid, it's always Real Talk here on the Jersey First Television Network. And yes, I'll continue to be the generational talent in Garden State media, folks, because I'm the hero you need right now more than ever. Because as the establishment media continues to lie to you, guess who won't? Fernando Uribe. I want to say thank you for tuning in here, folks. Again, please party responsibly as we're closing out the month of September. We'll be joining you next week here, as they say, to wrap up the month of September. And folks, again, it's election season, 43 days to go. I know mail-in ballots have gone out. If you haven't registered to vote, you still have time to. Again, 43 days, folks. Let's send a statement out there with 43 days to go. You saw both candidates speaking last night, make an informed decision about what direction you want New Jersey to proceed in coming up in 2026. So, again, folks, you can check out replays of the debate last night hosted by the New Jersey Globe on New Jersey, as well as my own recap of debate night in New Jersey on my own social media platforms. Again, folks, please party responsibly. Look after yourselves. Again, enjoy the end of the MLB season as the pennant races are winding down. Got the baseball playoffs starting next week. The NFL continues to be underway. Preseason hockey, good to see the Devils, Rangers, and everybody else taking the ice. NBA will return shortly, of course, as well as NCAA basketball, which I'm always excited about. And, of course, folks, pro wrestling at its peak right now with WWE and AEW. There's no shortage of product and product consumption for everybody else. Congrats to WWE on their debut on ESPN. A little bit of a lackluster show, in my opinion, but you can decide for yourself. Check it out there on ESPN+. Folks, look after your elderly neighbors. Watch out for kids. Again, folks, it is school season. So as you're driving in the mornings, commuting to work, watch out for crosswalks and watch out for school buses. Let's make sure our kids get to school safely and back home safely as well. Folks, I'll see you next week here on Real Talk once again. Thanks for stopping by. And always remember, stay classy, everyone.